Hello and welcome to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. My name is Rich Natoli, your regular host of the show. And this week I'm going to be joined by Nino Aversa, El Nino Fishing Team. You guys have heard of him. You've seen him on this a couple years ago, actually. Came on and talked about fishing Fluke tournaments. They've had a lot of success, not just with Fluke, but Blackfish. If you've been following Nino, and most of you, I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of people following him. I'm sure you've seen the pictures, the big Blackfish trailing that boat all over. It seems like the whole damn country. If it's on the water, he's hitting it at some point in time. We're going to roll into that pretty quick. Got to go through the sponsors first. Great Bay Outfitters, Radio Road in Tuckerton. Go see Paul and his staff for anything kayak related. He had some videos that he put up last week, just kind of showing everything that he has in the shop. So if you have Old Town native bonafide and you need any replacement parts, just go in there and check it out. Stop with the Amazon and ordering from these big, huge things. Go to a local shop that supports you and go check it out, because he's pretty much got everything. If you're going to need it for the kayak, he probably has it. And he has guys that can rig things up for you. So, you're buying electronics, you're buying any new parts for those kayaks, he's going to be able to take care of you and get it all set up so you're not spending your time out in the 90-degree weather, 100-degree weather today, burning up trying to get on the water. And then the next sponsor is me, your real estate agent in southeastern Pennsylvania. If you're looking to buy, sell, invest, give me a call, give me a text, give me an email, give me whatever. Happy to help you out. And if you're in New Jersey or a neighboring state, I do have a pretty wide network of affiliated agents that I work with that I could set you up with. So happy to help you out with that. We're going to have a new beginning, a new bumper coming into this sometime in the next week or so, as we have a new sponsor coming on, which we'll be announcing. And for any of you that are driving trucks, you're going to want to see that one. So it's going to be a good one. Again, another local business, which is what we're trying to focus on. So with all that said, I'm going to bring Nino on. Nino, welcome back. It's good to see you.
What's up, Rich? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So people know, so you're also somebody that people request a lot. So we've had a run of guests that are like a lot of requests. And I just want people to know I reached out to you weeks ago and you said, yeah, I'm going to come on, but really busy. I'm going to let you know as soon as I have some time. So that's why I was kind of holding off on announcing until actually yesterday, because we were trying to get this together up until yesterday. So glad to see you back on. We had Alkius on, so you got to come on and make fun of him a little bit if you can. Yeah.
We were comparing notes last night, me and John, about our my Montauk weekend. So yeah, he definitely deserves everything he gets, I guess. But nah, he's good people. They're all good guys up there. They're great to network with and fish around. And like you said, they put in a lot of work. They do really well up there. So it's good.
Yeah, you get this, if you fish the Raritan Bay, there's always this like New York versus New Jersey thing that you hear on the radio all the time. It's like, go back to New York, go back to Jersey, whatever. Half of them are from Pennsylvania anyway, but they're yelling at each other over the radio. But one thing that the New Jersey guys can't say is that the New York guys don't work hard, because they work their asses off on the water, and the results show. I mean, we have a lot of guys in this chat right now that watch, listen, and a lot of the guests that we have from New York are just top of the line guys. And I look at it this way: we all do the same thing. We just don't like to admit it. Everyone's out there working hard and doing their best to get these fish on the deck. And John's a good example of it. And I'll tell you what, the guys on his on his crew, the jig and jerks, they're all great guys. I'm hoping to get up there and fish with them. I've talked to John a couple times about heading up there and fishing with them. I keep saying that, but got blown out by weather the last couple of times that I was supposed to get up there. So we'll figure it out this year, I hope. But we're not here to talk about Halk. We're here to talk about you and we got a wide variety of topics here, because you could talk we could talk all night on any one of these. But there are three real topics that, well, there's probably four people are going to start asking in the chat, but we can talk about Fluke. You've made your name in Fluke. You crushed tournaments and made a lot of money on Fluke. Talk about Blackfish. And if people have seen the photo on the cover of this, if they haven't seen it in your social media accounts, 14.5-pound Blackfish, that thing's got a knot on its head the size of a grapefruit. Tournaments in general and trailering boats, which I have had a lot of people say, hey, can we talk some more technical stuff like that? Nobody hauls a boat further than you, right? So let's start on where do you want to start?
Well, you mentioned something about Tourney. You mentioned something about the radio chatter. So I'll kind of start with that because I noticed it a lot this over the weekend up in Montauk where so we get the luxury of going to so many different spots and different areas. And I'm not a real big radio guy other than obviously emergency or a safety situation. But this weekend I was just listening, and listening to some of the chatter comparable to when you get up in Montauk and then you go from there to the road and then the Cape May, the contrast is amazing on how, get out of my way. It goes from get out of my way, you this, or I'm throwing a piece of lead at you to, okay, yeah, well, I'll help you out on the next trip, come behind me kind of thing. So
yeah,
it's amazing how the different areas that we fish, you have the chatter kind of, it can be pitch dark or totally foggy out and kind of know what area you're in. So
yeah, so you just said, come behind me on the net. So that's Cape May.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely Cape May. That's what I grew up on is the Cape May chatter. Yeah. And you get in middle New Jersey, it's pretty much the same. It doesn't change all that much. But once you hit that border, then it turns into an all-out brawl. It's extremely entertaining. So I don't like to go on the radio at all. I will only do it, and we choose alternate channels, whatever's not busy. And because we're in kayaks, it's good to be able to at least communicate. So we'll choose a channel that no one else is on. But sometimes when we're all together and the fleet's out there, we just all switch it on. It's like, oh, tune to this, and we just sit back and laugh because it is so damn entertaining.
It's crazy, yeah. It's the Raritan. I'll put that gently, to put it gently. During the height of the bass run, if you have kids on the boat, you better cover their ears because it gets downright nasty, personal, the whole 9 yards. So I don't know if they all know each other. They sound like they know each other, but they get it in, man. It's crazy.
So yeah, sometimes I think it's guys that know each other and they're just messing with each other with a lot of colorful language. But sometimes like you're looking around, you're like, I want to find these guys because they're literally going to fight. They're going to collide on purpose and they're going to fight. And I need to see it. And I'm like, I need to film it.
Yeah, sure. That would be a great, a lot of views. But yeah, and I just sit there and say, all over a fish. This is crazy. So
yeah, the fish and the spots and all that stuff. I try to stay out of all that stuff, and I do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
I think I've been fortunate. I do know a bunch of people that have gotten into some pretty big scraps over things, and I don't know. It seems to be a lot of captain versus captain. So the pros are going at it more than the rec guys. I think the rec guys just like to kick back with the beer and listen for the most part, or stir it up a little bit more, and stir it and then get out of the way. So do you want to? What I'd like to do, even though it's out of season, I'd like to start on Blackfish if you're good with that. Right. The last time we talked, we didn't talk Blackfish at all, but that really is one of the core things that you and the team do, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we really fell in love with that fishery over the last, I would say, 7 to 8 years. I actually started, like we talked about prior to getting on, blackfishing in the backwater, on side banks and stuff like that. So totally different scenarios. Obviously, that you fish a lot in the back and probably blackfish also, side banks. But just developing a passion for that little 15-inch fish, the way they float, and then now getting the opportunity to catch what we catch out in the ocean, like 120 plus feet, and there's some behemoths out there. I mean, they literally hit the deck, and you think they're a drumfish. I mean, like a mini drum, like a 30-pound drum.
Yeah.
So when I first seen, I think I was on the Fish Monitor. To be honest with you, me and Ronnie were on with Jerry years ago. I'm going to say 8 or 9 years ago, and we seen a 15-pounder hit the deck, and that was it. We never caught one obviously that big. We never seen one that big. So
right.
Anybody that's seen one in person, you'll kind of get that understanding that, wow, I'm going to catch one too, and how violent the catch is too. Like as far as reeling them in, you really like it's almost like a little mini workout. It really is. They eat the living shit. And if you get like a big male, oh my God, it's you better hang on. And then obviously we talked about this like prior to that. As you let's say as your career, as you fish and the years upon years that you start and then get, you evolve. You want to, at least for my sake, I don't know about anybody else or any other anglers. Bass fishing, we've caught our share of bass, over the years. I started in the Cape May Rips. That's kind of like how I learned all boat control, stuff like that, when I utilize the Fluke and stuff like that. But as you evolve, you want to have more of a challenge. And obviously, live fishing, and if anybody's that tog before, man, I scream some curse words. So I go through 2 different curse word scenarios. I grew up in an Italian family that used a lot of Italian curse words. So like one day I'll just do all English curse words, and then the next day everybody will be like, "What are you talking about?" Because I'll switch to Italian and just kind of switch it up because I want to use the same curse word. But it's that type of fishery, and like I said, anybody that's done it and done it enough, they'll make you curse for sure. So it's
yeah, and that's a sign of a great challenge, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, if it's too easy, like today, I was on the water for just a few hours today, and you could see the sunburn. And it was the day there was never going to be a curse coming out of me because it was just one of those days. It was going to be a small fluke day. I was scouting an area that I was going to be fishing on vacation. So I know the area really well, but I know the best spots really well. So it's not that I tried. I didn't go to any of those. I started looking for other spots, and everyone I found was like nursery. I was like, oh, this is going to be a nursery, but there's going to be. But I'll tell you what, it was shocking. We could talk about this with Fluke, but I don't know if there's something wrong with me, if I've forgotten how to catch Fluke. First of all, the bite was weird. I'll talk about that later, but every fish I swore was a 25-incher. I mean, doubled the rod. It's peeling line. I don't think I didn't measure any. I don't think I caught anything over 17.
Right.
They were thick, and they were so pissed off today. But it was all nursery fish. I was like, I'm not going to curse or anything. I stopped getting excited after the second one. I was like, no, if that's how they're pulling today.
Yeah, well, a lot of time too, it could be current too. Bottom current's different from the surface current, so that gives you a different effect on how they float, and
yeah.
et cetera. So,
I don't think it's that. I think it was me. It was me. Yeah, I'll take that one on the chin. I was all geeked out for these little tiny nursery fish. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
But I'm trying to portray here, but basically, we've all been there with blackfishing where you could be the hero of the week and have 8 keepers, 9 keepers, and like smoke the day. You think you're like, whatever, like the best angler of the year award, but you go from that to literally the next day, from Saturday to Sunday, and you get 1 keeper or get shut out totally. So
yeah,
that's what I love about it. It's the bite changes so much. They could be really finicky, or depending on the day. A lot of it has to do. I mentioned current. I think that's a big factor, especially when we're fishing deep, because you want to be as vertical as possible, even though on an anchoring situation, you want to be as vertical as possible, just because of the fact that, obviously you want to be right over the top of that fish. And any angle or anything like that could prevent either a bad hookup or it just might not present as good or whatever. But 9 times out of 10, I mean, we jig the majority, like the way we are, as far as us as a team, most of the time, if we are using a rig rod, it's because the current is absolutely ripping, and but the majority, we're all jig guys.
So that I was going to ask you, are you still all jigs, and do you pull? So the rigs are your backup rods, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. It's more or less, based on current and on how the conditions are, and then we just kind of dictate it from there. But 9 times out of 10, if you have the correct setup with leader, size line means a lot because of the extra. I mean, if you're fishing deep and you have that much column to go through, and you're using 60-pound test, I mean, you're gonna have a hard time holding with 2 ounces or 3 ounce jigs. So
right.
Just because of the line resistance, but I generally like to be in the 20-pound range for braid. Because a couple things, I can go back and forth from Fluke to, and I don't have to sit there and change all my rods over every year, or every season or every species, let's say. So, so for the most part, that's my go-to is 20-pound. But
I'm glad to hear you say that because, my buddies make fun of me because I use 20. Sometimes I'll use 30-pound braid just because that's what I had spooled on one reel.
Right.
But then I'll use 20-pound mono leader. And I always hear, you'll never pull that. I'm like, well, I do. I've caught huge. I've caught I caught a 50+ inch striped bass on 20-pound mono, and I know it's different with tog, but I think it's interesting hearing it from you because we need to recognize something. First of all, you're fishing mostly wrecks for tog, right? You're not talking the boulders in New York, where it's typically boulder fishing, not necessarily wreck fishing.
Correct. Yeah.
So you're talking sharp structure.
Yeah, you have 2 different sides of the coin, right? You have your natural granite rock, like we fish a lot of Newport, Rhode Island, and all glacier rock stuff, and then which is natural bottom, but there's also coral in there. So we have a tendency not to switch back and forth because it decreases the variables of picking up a rod that you don't have it set up the way you want it, or let's say what you're fishing, right? But you're right. The Cape May stuff, anything south is all artificial reef stuff. The majority of it, single wrecks, out in middle, whatever, in deep or shallow, it doesn't matter. But so you want to have, for us, the bare minimum, and it's not so much for big fish. Let's say quote unquote big fish fishing. You want to have a big leader kind of thing. It's more or less because the high structure that comes up off the bottom. You want to have that. That top shot and the abrasion stuff. So so don't break off. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, that's kind of like how we set up, and that's how we do. So as far as tournaments overall, and we've increased our focus a lot more on the tournament fishing on Blackfish also. We try and fish our weekly regular fun fishing, wreck fishing, whatever you want to call it, exactly the same way. I might sound like I'm a broken record and I'm repeating the same thing and whatever. I've been called a lot of different things, but it gives everybody, especially if you fish with the same guys or same group of guys. We have about, I would say 8 or 9, 10 guys that we traditionally fish with every, that we rotate, but 2 or 3 are pretty much on my boat every week. But for the most part, we try and fish exactly the way we would for a tournament. So when a tournament comes around and like on a Saturday or something like that, we're just having a good time. We're doing the same thing that we do during the week. And it's just a repetitive thing. It's just, training your mind to do the same thing over and over again. It's kind of like I take it for a page from no different from a baseball team or a football team that does practice during the week. And, you look at like football teams that raise the volume up on the radio to play, during practice, so they know, because they know they're going to Buffalo or whatever, right?
Right.
Buffalo is a loud stadium, so we do the same thing. We'll set up, the way our rigs are set up, because everything's revolves around timing and making sure that you get all of your lines in order at all times. Because when it's all said and done, there's a skill to it. Yes, I agree, but tournaments, in my opinion, are won with lines in the order, and that means finding spots that you're going to spend more time at, and not. I always say, kidding around, like, you can't catch Fluke trolling. You know what I mean? So why are these guys like, they'll go? I watch them all the time at the reefs. Like, they'll stop, they'll fish, make a circle around us, do all what they have to do. They do 2 drifts and they're gone. And I'm like, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, if we have 5 guys on the boat, those lines better be on the water at the whole time we're in the strike zone, what I call the strike zone, where I know I'm looking at my graph and I know that the fish should be biting right now. And we only have 1 or 2 guys during that period. And the way that Fluke and even Blackfish, for that matter, has been very tide sensitive and timing sensitive. Like, where for Fluke, especially for like the season for Fluke last year, was brutal. I mean, it was tough. It was a grind, and a lot of it was 20 minutes. You had literally a half hour to catch your fish, and then it would literally shut off like a light switch. It's not the same as it used to be when there's a lot more quantity of fish, or let's say, spread out throughout the reefs or whatever. So you have to find a patch of fish, and then when you do find a patch of fish, you have very minimal time. 9 times out of 10, everybody's like, "Oh, we're catching, we're doing great." Next thing you know, boom, like a light switch, shuts off. So if you only have 2 or 3 lines in the water, and you got 5 guys on the boat, then you're at a disadvantage. So so everybody always asks, like, that's the big question, like, what do we do different, and what, that's it, man, is time in the water. Lines in the water mean everything. Even if you just dead stick, like, throw it down, flip the bail, let it go to the bottom. Plenty of times where a fluke, or, I'm not so much a blackfish, but a fluke will just whack it, but for the most part, I'm truly fortunate, and I can't speak enough about the guys that I fish with. They've been, solid guys, for especially like my partner Ronnie Redrow and all this. Like, I can't. It's like we get to the ramp and everybody knows exactly what to do. There's no arguing. There's no, I need to do this. Everybody has their job, and it's just repetitive. And we try and continue that throughout, from wreck fishing to tournament fishing, and it's been successful. So we're just going to keep going. We're having a great time. I mean, the big thing with my guys too is that we're fishing areas that, we talked about this a little bit before we got on the show. Like, who could ever say that? Or myself, I look at myself and I say, I'm sitting here, I'm a big, fishing fan. I love fishing. I watch all different facets of fishing. And I'm saying to myself, like, I've been to Montauk for 8 years. I've been fishing up there for 8 years now. Like, me and Ronnie were talking about down on the way home on Sunday. Like, that's so cool. I mean, we fish in an awesome area, and like places like Newport, Rhode Island, the fishery out there, unless you experience it, what you're seeing on the internet is nothing of how awesome the backdrops are. The way the houses are laid back, the estates. I mean, you're fishing some of the. If you're a bottom guy, between Montauk and Newport and Rhode Island, and even the Connecticut side, like the north side of Long Island Sound. I mean, I just look around sometimes and I'm in awe. Like, I can't believe, as a true bottom guy, like, you're fishing dream spots, So especially when you grew up in Cape May, when from the time that you leave the inlet, you'd have enough sand. I mean, I can't even imagine how much sand there is. I mean, we have to have an artificial reef to even have any kind of habitat, which is kind of sucks, but it is what it is, So
well, we do what we can with what we got, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
So So let me ask you this: when you're blackfishing, so you have the you're known to drop a lot of gear, meaning lose a lot of lose a lot of terminal tackle.
Yeah.
On a day that you're out blackfishing, how many for a tournament? How many jigs are you bringing with you? A 1 day tournament.
Yeah, so blackfishing, the whole losing the rig thing is more of a fluke thing because we're fishing such sticky stuff, and
Yeah.
you know we believe obviously you could catch fluke and sometimes you find them out in the sand next adjacent to the wreck, right? But 9 times out of 10, the bigger fish have a tendency to be stuck in that shit. As far as blackfish, we have a nice little tackle box full of jigs, but for the most part, I would say on a trip that's we fish a couple really good sticky spots. I would say 10 for the boat, maybe if that. It's not as much as fluke. Fluke is 10 adrift sometimes, so there's definitely a contrast between the two. But for the most part,
so you're spot locking for blackfish. Are you? This was a question in the chat from James Flynn. Are you spot locking also for fluke?
It depends on what type of quantity of fish. If I find a really good patch of fish that I can almost, let's say if you were in the backwater and you find a good line of fish, and you would almost anchor up or spot lock back there and fan cast, right?
Right.
So same thing with spot lock. I'll use it and then jog back. So this way, but sometimes depending on the bottom current when you're fishing deep, it kind of varies the two.
Yeah.
So it has to be the perfect scenario, but 9 times out of 10, I have a tendency to use spot lock and then have the remote control or use it on my Humminbird machine that's integrated with the Minn Kota and just jog back I'll push the button 5 or 6 times, which, times 5 feet, right? So it simulates a drift and a control drift at that. So, because sometimes, even to the point of where, if I look at my graph and I know it looks productive, really looks like it's fishy, we'll sit there and just have the guys jig and either reel back up and then cast out and then jig back towards the boat, that kind of scenario. But it has to be the right time, right? So, because when you're covering area, you're looking for more, you're finding the patch of fish that you're looking for, right? So if you don't find that patch of fish, then you're spot locked on nothing, and then you're sitting there and they're not going to come to you. So in that scenario, you're better off covering ground, right? So, but for the most part, I use a combination of both. If that answers this question.
I think it does, and it makes sense. It makes sense.
The outboard for me is a comfort zone thing because I learned in the rips growing up that with bass fishing that backing into the rip in a situation where you're using a bucktail with a Mr. Twister or whatever and casting up the rip, you want to be in that strike zone as much as you can. So the only way to do that, because anybody that's fished rips before, you're through it pretty quick, depending on the tide and how fast it's going. So at a young age, I was taught by an old fishing mentor how to do it, and a lot of the old salts, they all did it. Some of the guys are still out there battling every day, and they were productive and really good at it. So I tried to be a big sponge with that. So
it's not easy doing that. I remember doing that down the rips. It's dangerous. It is dangerous. Did you ever notice, total side topic, but did you ever notice that it seems like 90% of the boats that sank in the rips were well crafts?
Yeah, you know what? I never really put thought to it, but I think you're right.
It's always a well craft, and I think it was the older ones that had the open back. They had the split transom or the open transom, and they were getting they were backing down the way that you should, but they're getting a little tight.
That's one thing too. Especially when I purchased my boat, my Parker, just knowing what you just mentioned. And I had an open transom boat back then. Did I have the Hodge Sport back then? Yeah, I did have the Hodge Sport.
Yeah, they were popular for a little while.
Yeah, the notch transom.
Yep.
So you really had to be careful. But I definitely filled filled the transom more than I wanted to, put it that
Yeah.
way. But now with my Parker, I bought it for that especially. But it wasn't really for the rips; it was more for Fluke. So
Yeah.
because there could be times, especially during tournaments, where a lot of guys. Let's say you have 200 boats in the tournament, right? If it starts blowing 20, 25, you're alleviating 70 boats like a snap of a finger because guys just don't want to do it.
Right.
A lot of guys will get tangled, but if you're not backing in to the wind or whatever to slow the boat down, I mean, we never change. We're usually 2 to 3 ounces is what we use all the time. It doesn't matter if it's blowing 20 miles an hour. Doesn't matter what it's blowing, but that's ultimately we reach that to where we can possibly do that by controlling the boat and having boat control. Because, like I said, so we actually do better in tournaments when it's really bad out. Because if you have 200 boats that are all floating around and they're all drifting the same way and it's really calm out, anybody, not anybody, I mean, it's all still tough, you still have to set the hook, but it's, the odds decrease for you tremendously. Now, all them boats are in it to win it, right? So the other, like I said, the other scenario, if it's blowing that much, you're going to wipe out 70% of those boats like that with a snap of a finger. So now you're only competing against, let's say, 30 boats, right? So your variable is just increased just by the wind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, myself included, that think they're pretty good as a captain on their own boat. And I used to think that about myself, but there's a big difference between a professional or somebody that treats it as a professional and a dedicated wreck guy. I don't care how long you've been doing it. It's going to be the guys that really know how to work the boat are the ones that are making money on it or treating it like a job when they're out there on the water. And I mean, and it is a huge difference. And like you said, there's a reason the wreck guys go in. And I'm not bashing the wreck guys. I am one of them. You go in because you get uncomfortable, right? And you're uncomfortable with the boat in those conditions. Whereas a lot of these captains, not a lot, but the professional captains and the guys that are doing the tournaments in any condition, they've seen it already. It's not the first time that they're taking 6-footers, from the southeast when the wind's coming from whatever direction, right? They've been through it. They know how to position. But not only that, it's not only to keep the boat afloat, but they know how to position the boat so that they can still get the lines down and still fish. And that takes a ton of work. And that's where, it's a fishing team, and the captain is part of the team. It's not just go to the spot and sit and just drift. Now, a lot of times it can be, but what you don't realize, I think, and what a lot of people don't realize is if you have a really good captain, you are automatically at a huge advantage over everybody. And you may never even realize it. You may just think it was cousin Jimmy who just pulled up this 6-pound fluke and he's the hero of the day. Maybe, but it might just be the captain that knew that was the spot and made you hit it 7 times. And re-drifted it 7 times instead of single drifting past the buoy and then picking up and going to the green buoy a little, half a mile down the way.
And we I've seen enough of it, or let's say I've come across enough captains and I've come across enough different scenarios on either how to catch fluke and even how to blackfish, right? So in no way am I saying that our way is the only way to catch fluke, right? I mean, I've seen guys up in Montauk especially, they do 3-mile drifts. They have a 3-foot leader. They put like the old style OG old ground setup where you have a B2 squid, silicone squid. You put a hunk of meat on there with a stinger hook on it, and you sit back, open a beer up, and they're pulling up monster fish all the time. But for us, it works. I mean, and we're comfortable with it, and we like being vertical. So, it's a preference thing too. But we've had some really good success with it, so we're going to stick to it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not telling everybody to go out there and they got to buy the right boat, they got to buy the safety stuff and make sure everything's on the up and up and do it our way. I'm not saying that at all. It's more or less your preference, and what works for you. So we like to set up.
But then doing it consistently, right? So it doesn't have to be your way, but if you're going to take something from this, maybe it's find your way and then get consistent with it.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a big thing where you take a look at, you said that you fish rec fishing, the relaxing weekend fishing, whatever you do with your buddies, the same way that you do the tournament. I think a lot of that comes back to you get comfortable with it. So I had imagined, you're probably going to have the nerves the first day that you break the inlet for a tournament, but once you get out there, it's just regular fishing because you do it all the time. Yeah. Whereas most people that fish tournaments, it's a big event for them. They look forward to it for a long time because maybe they're only fishing one a year. Yeah. And they want to show well for that one and show that they do know what they're doing and they can place or they can weigh something in that's solid. So then all of a sudden they get the stress and they start bringing different equipment and they start going to different places and they start trying things and they spend more time looking at the boats next to them and looking for nets going up in the air than they spend watching their line and watching their graph to look at the structure that's underneath them at that point and adjusting. And I admit I'm also guilty of that. I do that all the time. I also don't necessarily do tournaments to win. I like to just go out and meet people and hang out.
Well, I mean, 9 times out of 10, when you're that comfortable, that's when the wins happen. I always look at it as, I use this analogy, like almost like hockey players, right? When they're struggling and they're not scoring goals or they're not, doing up to their capabilities, they say they're holding the stick too hard, right? They're not soft hands. They're not having, same thing with fishing. If you're tense, you explained it perfect. That's exactly my analogy that I tell my guys all the time. Like, if we fish relaxed, that's when good things happen. If you're fishing the tournament, like you're like, oh my God, this is the biggest tournament of the year. We have this much money, and the money obviously as it goes up, the more tense it is, right? So, let's just go out there and have a good time, And I think us maintaining that focus and keeping that in our minds has been a testament to what we've done because the minute that we do, we hold the stick too hard. We get to the point where we're like, oh, we haven't won a tournament in a year or whatever, or haven't placed, or and you just keep doing worse and getting, it just gets, a snowball effect. The next thing you know, you're like struggling. But the minute you go back to having a good time, and that's why we do Montauk trips, because we go up there, we relax, we still fish the same way, we're intense. We try and stay as focused as we can and do everything we do in the tournament, but it is a good time. We sleep in the parking lot, camp out, right there at Westlake Marina, and we chill out, have a good time, and check out the sites up there. It's really a cool place to hang out and just relax. That's the main thing. So, and everything else just comes naturally. So we try and do everything the same. Everything we set up, all the rods, we use the same amount of rods. Everybody has 3 or 4 setups ready to go. When I go up to make another drift, everybody rigs up either my stuff, whoever lost the rig. So when I put the boat out of gear, everybody's rods are all ready to go. They have 3 setups ready to go. There's no singularity at all in our team. Everybody. That's why originally when I was just going to name it El Nino, that I wanted Team El Nino for that reason, because I wanted everybody to be like, I fish for a lot of guys, and a lot of guys will come on the boat, and nothing against them. They have their thing, but they have their own goal and their own, particular rod that they use. And, for me, I tell everybody as soon as they step foot on my boat, like if they're new, look up at the rack. You can take anything of mine that you put it, you can use it. I'd rather you catch a fish, a big fish, or have a memory for a lifetime than you sitting there waiting to re-rig your back and stuff back up again. If we have a rod rigged in the rack, grab it. You know what I mean? So
right.
That's how we've always been. So
I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, 100%. So
I think it's also important that people remember, look, everybody listening or watching this has caught a PB, which would, maybe it's not true, but almost everybody has caught a PB of something when they were just having fun that would place or win a tournament on the right day. right? You've already done it before, and you just have to realize that. I used to, I'll tell this story because I know she's not watching. My daughter, she would get stressed with competitions for shooting. So she did competitive trap shooting, so shotgun, and she would get it in her head. And I would have to look her and I'd say, Ellie, look me in the eye. Just do what you do. You're just shooting. Just shoot. And then she'd knock out, I think her best one was 96 or 97 out of 100. But once she got calmed down and realized that just do what you've always been doing and stop stressing about the competition. It doesn't matter who's next to you, who you're up against. You do your thing and you have it in you to win. You've run 50 in a row. You got 50 left. You may just do it. And I think it's the same with fishing. And a lot of people, I think, have a difficult time with that because they start thinking about the money and start forgetting about what they do. You know, just do what you do consistently, and you should be good.
Yeah, and you mentioned the money. Just one point I'd like to make because it's kind of what makes me tick and what makes all this tick for me. And I'm fortunate to experience it all. It's the money's great, right? You know, but we never expected it. We never thought we're having a good time regardless of the money, right? But the best thing about for me being the captain of my boat and having the team that I have is the personal best. Like having so many guys that can say, wow, I was on Nino's boat when I caught 3 of my personal, like I repeated it 3 times. Or that to me is worth any tournament, any other tournament or any accolade that you could possibly send my way. And then obviously the experience to have in fishing different areas.
Yeah.
I could definitely want, like, anything that I've ever accomplished, always want to hang my hat on the fact that I know I fished pretty much every condition as a bobby fisherman that I could do in the East Coast. Not so much the whole East Coast, but at least the Northeast Coast.
Right. Right.
You know, because I mean, we've been, my boat has been through every inlet from Cape Cod, or let's say, well, Nantucket at that point, to Assateague, Virginia. So, and that's including every inlet up the coast, around the Raritan, on the other side of Raritan, by the Statue of Liberty, all the way up Long Island Sound, Connecticut side, and Montauk side, or Gardner's Bay side, and the south side, all the way around Block Island, the whole 9 yards. So,
all right, so let me ask you. You've been through, and that's pretty well the range of most of the people that watch and listen to this. We do have people in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, even a few Texas, and believe it or not, Australia. For some reason, I don't even know if we share common species.
Cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. But so let's say you could pick any time of the year and any inlet to go out, or any area to run out of for Blackfish. What's your ideal? You know, where would it be, and what time of year for Blackfish?
I would say late October, Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay, I was going to say it must be up there then.
Phenomenal. I mean, anybody that hasn't experienced that, we have a lot of good buddies up there that we fish with. Actually, on our Hummingbird and Coda team, BJ Silva, Lake Littlefield. Those guys are great. They'll work with you, help you as much as they can, but they're also great captains to hop on. Robbie Taylor is another one. I mean, he speaks for himself. Like I said, Robbie's one of the best, if not one of the most dedicated fishermen that I think I've ever met. We're at like the show, the solar show, and he just comes walking up and says, "Oh yeah, I just fished a jetty. I don't know where I was at," kind of thing. I'm like, this guy, man. I thought we fish a lot, but anyway, in Newport, it's an amazing fishery. I mean, they're right now they're catching bass in the bay, and then after they get done catching bass, they're catching like world-class fluke right now. So I'm like super jealous. I'd love to get up there, but it's a hard drive for us. I mean, it's a good 6 hours, so it's tough for us to get up there, and it's compact, right? Newport, it's not made for trailable boats at all. It's for like sailboats. The big superliners, I can't think of what the time I had. The cruises, Carnival Cruise Lines and everything. That's the port. That's basically what the port is. It's tourists that come off the cruise lines and a lot of blowboats. So So it's not made. The streets around there are not made for trailable areas. So, but come Blackfish season, that's on our schedule. I guarantee.
Yeah, you're going to go through those streets anyway.
No doubt. And
yeah.
I think we're on our second or third flat tire with the granite curbs up there. So every once in a while, I cut the corner a little bit too much, and I mean I had no choice. I mean they're so tight. So, but we get it done. I mean we have it down pat.
Well, you also got the spare tire for the as long as you don't blow out too, right?
Yeah, well, we have to.
Oh, you have to. Okay.
Yeah, you have to have two. What we do, there's no way because 9 times out of 10, especially with a radial tire, if you blow out one, the other one's going to probably go with it. So you better have two. So, but yeah, that is probably Montauk with a close second. I don't know. Montauk has been kind of hit or miss for the last couple of years, but yeah, Newport that place is special.
Would that be the same area that you'd be launching out for Fluke?
Yeah.
If you could do the same thing for Fluke, would you head up there?
Yeah, so Fluke is definitely more spot dependent for the Newport area. Like they'll move, we're going to be in the same, like Montauk there's probably 4 spots where I can almost guarantee you're going to catch, some keepers at, right? But
yeah,
Newport, I mean, I never really actually targeted Fluke at Newport. So that would be something new for me. But from what I hear, they have a tendency, different areas or they're more bait dependent. They'll follow squid in, and stuff like that. But that's only hearsay. I haven't really experienced it myself. So, but they're going to be big ones. I know another friend of ours from the Humminbird Minn Kota staff, Greg Vespi, on BJ's boat, I think had a 15-pounder, which is like right in Narragansett Bay. I mean, they're right in the bay fishing, so it was a monster. I mean, a 15-pounder to us is that's forget it. That's the best fish that you can, that's a monster. So
that's crazy. Well, we have in the chat, Joe Billups caught his PB Fluke, 28 inches, 10 pounds on the nose this past weekend. Nice. He was up there. So the reason I ask you the questions, like where would you go, is because one of the things that a lot of people for this channel have been talking about is having people come on and kind of share like their bucket list trip that they just took, and so that other people can hear about it and maybe it'll kind of spark something with them. So Joe is one of those, and then we have Eric Cohen, he's fished like Amazon, like I mean, talk about a bucket list place to go. So that's why I ask, because there are people that are going to be looking for, what's the best time if I'm going to just invest in one trip this year and it's going to be for Blackfish, one big trip, where's it going to be? And you just answered that for them.
That's 100%, hands down. And then as far as Blackfish, a close second would be, I mean, the Connecticut coast right now is, not right now, but I mean, during the season, there's some, I mean, we caught, our biggest fish that we've ever caught in a Blackfish tournament there last year, 18.5 pounds. So right on the Connecticut area. It's the equivalent, honestly, it's the equivalent of like sea bassing down our way in Cape May, like where if you don't have your bail flipped, when the bite's really on and they're hangry, you're not getting them. It's just not. I mean, we've got them we've had some of our best days with dead bait because we take it up there and don't make it sometimes because of the heat, like crab, and they're like, I mean, they're hooking themselves. It's crazy.
Yeah, they don't even care.
It's just
the bite's on. The bite's on.
Oh, it's absolutely insane. Every rock pile you go to, it's not going to be like dropping real every rock pile, but there's fish at every rock pile. I mean, we'd be happy that we'd be flipping backwards if we had that in Cape May, you know what I mean, or anywhere else. So.
But we do have the Rex. We do have probably one of the best reef systems.
Yeah, 100%. And you get those, now that area up there, Newport, Connecticut, and stuff like that. I think because of the work that the charter captains are doing with helping out with regulations up there, which I've never seen in any. I mean, we fished a lot of states, and those guys really hang together and unionize together, and basically, put their foot down and say, "Hey, these regulations got to change." And I think that's helping tremendously where the species is getting to the point. I know Robbie Taylor, after we had our 18.5 pounder, we thought that was a monster up there, and literally a day later, he catches a 21 or something and change.
Yeah.
So it's like, so they're starting to, the fish are getting bigger, and it used to be like a big fish up there was 14 pounds, 15 pounds, like that was a monster. But now it's you hear it constantly, 18 and 19 and 20, but not so much as 20 pounders down at Cape May, but I think like the Cape May area, the further you get offshore and closer to the canyon, it provides more warm water. And this is just solely my theory. I mean, people that probably have a different theory probably call me crazy, but means the fact that they're close to that stream, every once in a while keeps the water just warm enough where those fish will eat 12 months out of the year, rather than
grow bigger.
Yep, comparable to up in like the Montauk and Rhode Island area where the bottom is so cold it gets to the point where they're literally they're sleeping. It's just So.
Yeah, and that's one thing with Blackfish is they're not the same. You've got the north New York north, and then you've got south, and they're different. It's not the same group of fish, and they're not moving between the two. And I think a lot of people think like just because you have them here at a certain size, they should be that size somewhere else. But what you brought up is the exact point. They can't eat year round up there. They're in survival mode, and they're kind of catatonic, and they're not doing nearly as much as they are down south. The one thing though is I can't figure out why there aren't even bigger ones even further south. Now you look at the world record, well, that's out of Maryland, so so it does kind of.
Even if you go more south, Virginia is a place that used to be a sleeper state, but now there's a lot of guys going down there. But, there's some charter guys that are showing their hand, and they're behemoths down there. I mean, I think the world record's swim down there, even bigger than 28 pounds. So we've been trying to get a trip to go down there, but it's tough.
So that's kind of what I was getting at. Like you would think that there would be even bigger further south, but you never hear about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, up until a couple of years ago, you didn't really hear much about the redfish run in the middle to upper Chesapeake either.
Right, exactly.
Like they did a good job keeping it quiet until it wasn't, and then they all just came out and said, "Yeah, we've been doing this for years," and then they shared everything.
So kind of the same thing as the cobia, right? Now everybody's running down there to cobia fish.
Yes, the cobia.
Yeah, we were, I forget, we were south somewhere, and we seen a skiff, and it had a 11-foot A-frame ladder in the middle, like in front of the center console.
Yep. I wonder why.
Yeah, like trying to see where the cobia are at. Not the safest thing in the world, but hey, whatever makes it happen,
if you're going to spot that cobia, it's certainly worth it. I think they probably duct tape it to the hard top. So let's just hope. It's funny though that the places where there are these fisheries that they're even the ones that they're not really a secret, but people don't really get a lot of attention, like the North Carolina tarpon bite. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but you head back into the Sounds, and well, that's where the big tarpon are at certain times of the year, right? And people don't really know that. But you don't have to go to Florida to catch huge tarpon. You can catch them in North Carolina at the Outer Banks. Just go on the Sound.
Yeah, so I mean, we're so obsessed with the Northeast that it's going to be tough for us because we just have so much stuff on the schedule. But we fished down there, but not enough to where we can establish some data to go back to. And but it's untouched still down there. I mean, it really is. As much as guys that fish down there a lot, beg to differ and think that it's getting overcrowded already. But
Yeah.
there's some behemoths down there. I mean, they got some trucks down there. Man. I mean, there's been a couple times where guys couldn't stop a couple fish where they were loaded for bear, and that's a good one. But
And still ran it.
yeah, oh yeah. But yeah, it's something that we definitely want to put on the schedule, but it's just hard. We're limited to the weekends. We don't have regular jobs, so it's tough to get everybody together. I mean, I could get days off, but I don't want to do it without the guys that been with me since day one. So you know what I mean.
Right.
We want to experience all the same stuff.
So you said you kind of rotate people through. Who's the original crew? What are their names?
So it's changed quite a bit. Just because a lot of guys got their own boats and stuff and moved on,
Yep.
and they're doing their own thing. We all still network together. But obviously, Ronnie Redbro, I mentioned him. He's my partner in this whole thing. So we take care of everything as far as he does a lot of the lodging and where we're going to stay at, and we discuss a lot of the weather together. He'll give me his take on it, and we'll kind of make the call on like a Tuesday if we're going the weekend after, that kind of stuff. And the fishing too. We've been together for now almost 9 years, I would say.
Yeah.
And then used to have my cousin Frankie. He was a part of our team, but then his family started growing, so he's got a little one now, and
Yeah, that'll do it.
And then a couple other guys. Anthony DeAndre, he's another guy that got his own boat, but he always had his own boat, but he'll try and get out with us every once in a while. Rob Doherty, he's been kind of a guy that stepped up and been coming to more tournaments and stuff like that. So he's like half freshwater guy, half saltwater guy, but I think he's starting leaning towards fishing a lot more saltwater stuff. So he'll be part of our flounder pounder team this year. Jason Coppola, who I work with, that is starting. He started fishing heavy in the last 2 years or so as far as Fluke. So he's getting his feet under him and starting to put some nice fish on the deck too. He was with us last weekend in Montauk. And then the last team member now that's going to be on a pounder is new to the team, John Antonini, who's up. He's a Connecticut guy that we met. We actually met in Montauk. We were on the same drift years ago, probably when we first started going up there. And, we just started talking and, seeing each other because we used to go. I mean, we do probably 14 trips a year in Montauk. So, it went back to, a couple of years because of the fishery, just slowed down. But yeah, so John, Rob, Jason, Ronnie, and myself, that's pretty much our team now. So,
all right. So I needed to hear the names because I don't always see the names. I just see the pictures of the big fish. So
yeah. We always try and have like our three, guys that are, normal guys, and then I always like to bring somebody that either hasn't caught a big fish or, that fishes and is good at it or whatever, and then, experience different stuff that they haven't experienced yet. That to me means so much anymore than a couple of years ago when I was like, no, we got to have our team and we got to be solid, and that kind of stuff means more to me now than it did before. Kind of seeing smiles on everybody's faces that you've never seen before.
Yeah, it's funny how things change, right?
Oh, 100%.
You go through it a few times, you're like, maybe I can just tweak this a little bit. My approach might be a little bit better, more comfortable for me if I step back a little bit.
Yeah, and
take it easy on it. And your results are good. So what's your next upcoming tournament? Is it Flounder Pounder?
No, we have a couple in July coming up. I think we're going to start off. There's the Flounder Derby, I think it's called. That's a new tournament that kind of, I don't know if it replaced the Duke of Fluke in Wildwood, but it's one that's the same time frame. I think it's around the 13th that it was for the other one, for the Duke of Fluke. So we're probably going to fish that. July's a heavy month, so we have that one. We fish the Elks at Point Pleasant.
Yeah.
Another good one. I know there's another one I can't think off the top of my head before the Flounder Pounder, I think there's 4 in July. And
so you're sticking New Jersey basically for July for the tournament.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's a mystery to us why there's not really any good. So the last big tournament that we won in out of let's say Rhode Island or that area, the New England area, was the Fluke, and after we won that tournament, that was the last time they had it. It just got so big that the guys running it just said it's too much. They back off.
I can see that.
Started for that, but it got pretty big. So nobody really took that one over. So we would love to see that come back, but because we've always done well at that one. But yeah, it's a mystery to us why New England area doesn't have more Fluke tournaments, because the Fluke fishery is so good up there, So
I think you might have hit on it though. I mean, tournaments are a pain in the ass.
They are. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to take on, And you have social media now, which guys are in the parking lot sitting there, making comments before they even leave, and
right.
This is wrong and that's wrong. They didn't do this right and they did that right, and it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna not do it anymore.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? Everyone's doing their best. Everyone's doing their best out there. Just relax there, Captain Cowboy.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of. So there's the tournament that I think that I'm going to be down. It's actually freshwater. I don't fish freshwater. It's a tournament in South Carolina that we're trying to get together in September, and it's just, even though I'm not doing 99% of it, it's still a lot.
Yeah.
It's still a lot. And they're like, well, why don't you do one in New Jersey? I'm like, it's a lot. Like, I'd rather just fish it. Like, get somebody else to do it. I'll fish it.
We fished everything available to us last year, which I think it was around 12 or 13 tournaments, and that's a brutal schedule for us. Just fishing on the weekends. It's a lot, man.
Well, let me ask you this: what if there were a flounder series, and it was like they have down south for like the redfish, and like Florida has it's series after series. Would you consider doing a series?
100%. We used to fish a series for striped bass called the ASA. I don't know if you remember it.
Yeah.
That was so cool, and people came out and drove. Like, they literally would come and watch the weigh-ins, and it was like a freshwater trail, like a tournament trail.
Yeah.
And it changed sports. I think we fished the Raritan one. I forget all the ones, but there was a bunch of them up and down the East Coast, and I would love that, something like that, because not for nothing, like North Carolina's starting to have a really good Fluke fishery.
Yes.
So you could base it, pretty spread out throughout the East Coast, or the Northeast, let's say. But it's all about who's going to take that step, right? I know I couldn't do it. I just don't have the time.
Right. I would fish it. I would prefer to fish a series than to fish a bunch of tournaments.
I think it would draw more sponsorship, to be honest with you. I think it would be more lucrative for guys to put money in as far as sponsors and stuff. But
I mean, I friends that fish, Florida series, and they're coming out with. I mean, they're very heavily sponsored. It's Florida. I get it. It's a whole different thing. But they're third place and they're walking out with $8,000.
Yeah.
Kayak. That's just the kayak division. But it's a big thing. It's a big event every time that they do it. I think they do it every 2 weeks. They do one, and it's in a different area within the region. And these guys are coming from all over, and people are showing up just to watch, like you said.
Yeah.
Just to watch the weigh-ins, just to hang out as people come back in.
Yep. Yeah. It's good stuff. And that's what the coolest thing about the flounder counter is they have such a big, there's already so many people there that live in that Potts Nets area. And every year you go back to it, you get more little cheering section, and people are so nice down there. It's it's such a cool place to fish a tournament. So and Al and his team down there, the owner of Paris Grill, they do a phenomenal job of running it top to bottom. And he'll tell you he needs a 2 month vacation after that tournament because it's not easy. So I mean, I think last year they had 340 boats or something. So
that's
crazy. So
that's crazy.
It's nuts. So, but man, it's good stuff. It's good stuff for sure.
Yeah. So we're over our hour, but I did want to ask you: are there a couple of tips that you want to give? So you're moving that boat. I mean, we've talked about it this entire time. You're moving that boat every week.
Yep.
all over the country, all over the East Coast, mid-Atlantic, Northeast. Do you have a couple of things that you think would just help some of these guys that are maybe a little apprehensive about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is maintenance. I mean, just like any other piece of equipment, right? If you don't put your time and obviously the money into the maintenance part of it, it's just going to fail because um, comparable to a regular trailer that you're doing whatever other hobby that you do, we're putting our stuff in the salt every week, twice a week,
Yeah.
in and out, in and out. Comparable to a guy that slips his boat and only puts it in once in the beginning of the year and once on the back end, right? So everything is enhanced on a boat trailer. Like whatever's going to rust is going to rust double, more quick than it normally will on a regular situation, right? So a lot of so I use these hubs that I think if I have one tip in general to kind of hang the hat on as far as what I would recommend is Vortex hub. So they're 100,000-mile warranty or 6 years, whatever comes first, totally encapsulated hub situation where Lucas grease and all that fun stuff. You don't even touch it. I think I've only lost one hub. And the last time me and Ronnie kind of checked our logbook, I think we've had on my trailer, which is a 2017, I think we have 180 some thousand miles on it. So we've only lost one hub. Now I do periodically, after a certain amount of mileage, just switch them out preventatively.
Sure.
Yeah, but for the most part, we've had great results with the Vortex hub. Yeah.
So the last thing you want to do with a trailer that you're putting that boat on is go to end of life on your hubs.
Yeah, exactly.
You shouldn't go end of life on anything when you're doing that.
Nope, not at all. And then obviously your tire upkeep too. I mean, generally we, depending on how many places we go and how much we travel, obviously once a year I put all 4 of the tires on, and it's pretty good. As long as I rotate them, I get a full season out of them. And we've been really good with a 10-ply radial tire as far as flats too. As long as I stay away from granite curves, we're pretty good.
Right.
As far as overall blowouts, we really haven't had one. We've always just gotten a flat and pulled over, changed it. But I have a little toolbox in the front of the trailer where I have everything, every interchangeable part on that trailer is in that box. So I have another spindle, I have another hub, actually 2 hubs, 2 spares. We swapped out the surge brake to put hydraulic over electric, so this way we have a better reaction.
Right.
When you hit the brakes, you're stopping rather than that. Everybody that has a boat trailer, when you hit the brakes with a surge trailer, you kind of like wait till it surges and then it stops. But when you travel as much as we do in traffic that we are and the way people drive, especially in New York, you want that to stop like immediately when you hit the brakes.
Right.
So there's a lot of improvements and a lot of different things to try and be preventative maintenance-wise and equipment-wise to definitely have the advantage. I get a lot of that stuff from, I used to drag race when I was young till about 2000, 2001, and then totally switched over to fishing, even though I fished since I was a kid. But I traveled everywhere with the race car, so that kind of everything that I learned and made mistakes on and maintenance-wise and stuff like that just kind of translated it into the trailer. And then I started out in Breezy Lee when I bought the boat. Actually, the boat's going to be, its 10-year anniversary July 5th. So it'll be 10 years old. So when I first bought it, I put it in Breezy Lee in Cape May, and I'm like, this sucks. I hear all these reports everywhere, up north, Clarendon, Fluke Light's amazing. And I'm sitting here waiting for the Fluke to get here. I'm like, screw that. Let's get this thing. I told Captain Harbor, or my dock mate, I said, I'm out of here. He goes, where are you going? I'm like, I'm on the trailer, man. I'm out of here. So, and then it's been, the rest is history kind of thing.
But you missed all the interactions of Breezy Lee.
Yeah. Well,
that's like a cast of characters times 10.
It's funny how no matter where the dock, like you have the old fisherman dock, which that's where I was at in the front.
Yeah.
So you have all them guys that were old salts that taught you, like they were the old ground guys that, they floated around and they caught some monster Fluke back then. And then you kind of go to the newer section where, some of the newer guys are in there and you get different opinions there. And, but it's cool. Same thing as like the other Marines down there that's been around forever, like Hutchies. And
Yeah.
Everybody has their cast of characters, I guess. But for the most part, I loved it there because they're all fishermen. That was the good part.
Yeah. If you want to get into a group of fishermen, go to a Wildwood older marina. I mean, these guys, I mean, they'll curse at you for asking a question.
Right.
Not all of them, but a lot of them if they don't know you. Just if you were ever on the Bass Barn back in the 20 years ago, in its heyday.
Yeah.
All the drama was coming out of those, and they were doing it on purpose.
I still talk to some of them guys. It was crazy. Yeah, it was the internet. They were technology before technology, I guess you could say. I don't know how to put that, but they were above their ahead of their time, put it that way. Because I mean, honestly, that was like the only group or forum that like is now with the internet. You have all the Facebook groups, but that was it. I mean, Ronnie Reddington. I mean, he built I can't believe what like he ended up selling that thing for. But I mean, it was it. I mean, that's all we talked on was that they had like a barn fest and everybody would meet up and have.
I went to one of those. Yeah. It's funny. A lot of people don't know. So I was on there, but I didn't have my name was not my real name.
Okay.
So I know who a lot of people are from in there, but they don't necessarily recognize that we had talked many times on there because they thought 100%. I didn't have a real name. It was like I don't remember Shadow something.
I wasn't either.
Yeah, but I used to love that. I had to reminisce about the Bass Barn because I knew you were in there.
100%. Yeah.
I love those guys. So I make fun of them, but I love those guys in there arguing. It was and then the moderators have to come in. Hey, cool it. It's like, oh.
Yeah, 100%. Unfortunately, some of the really cool guys, the old salts that I talked to and learned a lot from actually have passed on, which sucks with anything, right? Them guys were a bundle of knowledge, and they were always willing to share. And it was, a lot of those guys, have passed on, which sucks, but it's kind of life,
that was one of the things. So they wouldn't share online, but they would share in person. And that's one thing that kind of bothers me. People say, back in the day, we didn't share anything. Like, yes, you did. We shared everything. It's just you had to do it face-to-face. You did it face-to-face. So what's the difference if you're doing it through instant message or you're, the mailbox on the Bass Barn? It's the same thing. People say, oh, it's different now. Everyone tells everyone everything. They used to before.
Yeah, it's almost like it was like a form of validation form or something, right? To be in person instead of, like I said,
it didn't take long. Yeah. It didn't take long. You met them and you said hi and you just talked about fishing for 2 minutes and they're giving secrets. And they were valuable secrets because I mean these guys were catching species you didn't even know where. I mean, speckled trout back in the day. There were more of them, but still, it was not something that anyone targeted. We had so many weak fish, but there were the speckled trout guys back in the 80s, and they would tell you where they were.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Yeah, it's you don't see that anymore. That's for sure.
No,
it's a different world we live in.
It is. It's and 99% of the videos are fake.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's only going to get worse with this AI stuff. So.
Yeah. So I'll tell people all of mine will always be real.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that I don't believe in AI. I use it every day for work, but I just don't want to put the time into making fake videos and being that kind of douchebag.
Yeah, exactly.
So, hey, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. Great
and I want to say for everybody that's watching or listening, because this will be up before, there is the Grassy Sound tournament, boats and kayak division. I'm going to be fishing it. I'm not saying you have to fish with me, but it'd be awesome to be able to see people afterwards. And full disclosure, afterwards, I'm going to be there for like an hour max, and I'm out because I got a 2.5 hour drive from there to get home. But it would be awesome to see some people out on the water. If you want to go out in the kayak and you enter, hit me up because I would love to hit the water with some people. Charlie is going to be there. I'm going to be finding him. and I'm going to be with Charlie out on the water, whether he likes it or not. Unfortunately, he's got a trolling motor, and I can't keep up, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to keep up with him. So we do have that coming up this weekend, so everybody jump in there if you can. And then next week, it's up in the air again, trying to work with a couple of people to see who can slide in. If not, I'm going to be going over a kind of a solo episode where I'm going to talk about how to switch from the spring to summer fishing in the backwaters specifically. Because as Nino and I were talking before we even came on, it seems like we didn't really have this spring. The water's 75 degrees today in the backwaters. It's switching to the summer fishing. And if you don't believe that you should change your tactics, I think you need to reevaluate, because once that water heats up to a certain temperature, everything changes and the fish react differently, and they're going to be in different areas. So that's what we're looking at. Otherwise, I'm not going to say the name of the guest, but I'm actually working on a guest as well. So that will bump me out and push it back. But Nino, again, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. Great information. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I will be back next week. So until next week, everyone get out there, get on the water, get some tight lines.